About 2 months ago, I was on the treadmill and I got to thinking. And that's always dangerous. When I hit the office with a thought, they all dive for cover. And on that treadmill with the blood flushing my brain, I went, wow, we have missed a huge area of your life, a huge area. So remember when you're all working and saving and we're number crunching, we're going, you need to save a bit more, you're coming in on target, let's look at tax. So a lot of planning around retirement, a lot of planning. In retirement, we look at tax planning. So really important, trying to disinherit CRA, in particular with estate settlement. So I'm all over you on wills and powers of attorney. I have a PhD in nagging. And just when you get your will all in order, I read it and I nitpick. So somebody experienced that yesterday, and they came out alive and they're still here. And then if they're over 5 years old, I want you to review them. So retirement, and then you're going out the big door of life. Holy, what about the in-between? How you're going to live? What about the last 10 years of your life? Nobody wants to talk about that. So I got to thinking how important this is. Where should you live? What should you do? What kind of money do you need? So we're going to address that today because you have choices, because you have money. I know you have money. I would know. You have money. And with money comes charitable and comes opportunity. You have choices in life. So we're going to talk about some of those choices today and what's the implications of them. So some of the choices I've investigated personally is cruising on the Queen Mary. They'll feed you, you get music, you have a steady social life. They have a doctor on board and a nurse. That's $8,000 to $10,000 a month, give or take. Then I investigated Maison. It's not the retirement home on just down the road. It's not La Maison nor Le Maison. It's just Maison retirement homes, high end. That's about 10 grand a month to start. Or what about we stay in the comfort of our own home? What about you just have a bit of a medical condition, or your partner does, something happens, they're healing? How do we stay in our homes, away from all those germs and things in the hospital? Like, if you're not sick going in, I'm worried about how you're going to come out. So I think taking a look at some of these opportunities, we need to know what's out there, and then we can make educated choices. So earlier this year, there was a presentation at the Petroleum Club. Now, I just like going there, but the subject matter was home instead. So I showed up. There was quite a room full, and there was two people, Debbie and Fred, presenting at the front. And I was all ears. I think I was dead center. As soon as they finished speaking, I had my hand up, and they were like, who is that? Who is that? I think they began to suspect I had many ulterior motives, information gathering, what do I want to do, what would I like to help my clients do. I was so impressed with their presentation, I invited them to meet the whole team, which is quite a crew. They were so impressed, we said, we're going to invite people that are interested in exploring this option. So here we are today. Debbie, in a previous life, worked for Alberta Healthcare. Fred definitely is an entrepreneur. Debbie came home one day and said, the system does not work. Fred, you need to fix it. And so he and she did. And this is one of our opportunities. Debbie is a proud Calgarian, born and raised here. She attended the U of C, where she earned Bachelor of Nursing. Debbie has worked in many different Alberta healthcare portfolios during her 27 years. She loves to travel with her husband, Fred. This year, I know every time I call, they go, we're off to Asia. Yeah. Southeast Asia, Hawaii, Phoenix in Mexico, And the year, it's only October, so there's room for more. Fred is a proud Albertan, originally from Edmonton. Sorry about that. I lived there too, but I left, as did you. He has called Calgary home for 37 years now, been married to Debbie for 35, so I think there's a coincidence there. Somebody met, somebody moved. They've been married for 35 years. They have 2 adult children. They were very smart because one of their sons is one of their succession plans. Oh, I missed that. I missed that memo. Fred and Debbie have worked collaboratively together since 2009 when Debbie was frustrated with the public system and its limitations. I think that's a big understatement, but we'll leave that be. Fred works behind the scenes at Home Instead to shape and model the company to deliver an incredible experience to their clients. They are both internationally recognized for their award-winning work in Calgary. So please help me welcome Fred and Debbie.
Thank you, Kathy, for that wonderful introduction. And my name is Fred Franchuk. And when Kathy and I and Debbie were chatting about joining you here today, one of the things she impressed upon me is, let's not make this salesy. So I promise you there'll be no salesiness here today. But she said, all of the people coming for lunch are like family. They're our clients, but we treat them like family. And Debbie and I instantly said, that's how we run our business. Matter of fact, our tagline is, to us it's personal. So in everything we do, we want to make it as personal as possible. We're going to spend about 45 minutes or so with you today talking about some care options, and we really hope it resonates well with you. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce my wife, the brains of our company and the driving force behind care, Debbie Franchuk.
Thanks, Fred. I don't know about the driving force because he is a huge part of this business, but the brainchild of it did start with me. So I've been a nurse for 40 years, but the last 25 years was in public home care. And so I don't stand up here saying I know this stuff, but I am an expert in what I've experienced through Alberta Health Services, and I've seen so many tragic stories of gaps. I understand that the system is a system, and there's limitations when there's a system, but we were so frustrated, him listening to me talk about the constantness of ambulances coming into the hospitals, a revolving door of unwell people, and the trajectory or the common model of the Alberta Health Services as to where people need to go when they're ill. And so it was extremely frustrating for me as a home care nurse to see those gaps. And so that's where this frustration was born out of it. And I did come home one night, and I had been in the hospital on a stat holiday, and staffing was limited, and I came home and I said, every family that I touched today, I felt I wasn't able to do enough. There wasn't enough of me to go around for the number of people I had to see because I was covering the entire hospital. One home care nurse covering the entire hospital. And Fred said, well, what can we do? And I said, well, you have a massive business mind and I have a healthcare mind. So let's put our two minds together. And whatever we do is going to benefit this system. And so that's where we came up with Home Instead. So maybe, Fred, you can share our journey.
Fantastic. And as we go through this, maybe I'll just share with you a little bit about who Home Instead is. Home Instead is the world's largest independent or private home care company. I was just reading this morning that members of our team were in the United Nations in New York City this morning presenting on health and aging for seniors to the UN Assembly. So we're a global company. We have offices in over 1,200 offices in 12 countries. And collectively, last year we did over 100 million hours of private or independent home care. What does that mean? Why is that important? It just means that this is all we do, and we're pretty darn good at it. Now, our office here, as Kathy and Debbie just said or shared with you, we opened in 2009. And at that point, there was no Home Instead in Alberta. No one knew really what private home care was. Today, we have a team of about 250 people, and monthly we serve, just in the city of Calgary, and when I say Calgary, I also mean Okotoks and Cochrane and Airdrie, of course, we serve about 25,000 hours of care monthly. So we're really proud that people have recognized the need for this type of care. Now, we want to stick to the script, because I will usually go off the script, and then Kathy and Debbie will get mad at me. So we want to provide you with some information today, some practical care information on what you can do. We want to give you an honest idea about options as well as costs. So I loved Kathy's comment about you having money. It does take money to have the type of care that we do, but perhaps not as much as you think. We want to give you some tools to have conversations with Kathy and her team, with your family, with your spouse, with your children. And if you are the children, we want to give you some tools that you can have conversations with your parents. Mostly, we want to help you plan for your future and help you make informed decisions. There's nothing worse than making a decision that's done in stress when you really don't have time to sit back and think about it. So those are our goals today. Now, here's Debbie.
I love this picture. I don't know if any of you have seen them before. There's different images of who you are today and maybe who you were just yesterday. For some of you, it's a decade ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago. But when you look in the mirror, you see the same person. I know Fred and I will often say, geez, I remember when I was 25. I remember when I was backpacking through Southeast Asia and had no care in the world. I quit my job as a nurse and went and came back and started working again. Life looked like it would never end. But as you age, it can become more difficult. Now, I know there's some of you in the audience that'll say, well, I'm doing just fine. My hips don't hurt yet, my knees don't hurt, I don't have the aches and pains of aging. Or some of you might, like me, kind of go, wow, I can't lift as much, I can't walk as far, I can't see as well. These nice little attachments on the top of my head, they're frustrating. It's very frustrating because it's difficult. I can't read the stuff that's on this piece of paper anymore where I used to be able to do that. So we meet with families all the time where getting older can be exciting and can be full of love and joy, but there's a percentage of the population where it is very difficult and varying degrees of difficultiness. I'm going to change the next one, Fred.
So some realities here.
Yeah. So many older adults say that maintaining control and independence, autonomy, whatever word you want to use to describe that, is the most important thing for them. You've been in charge of your life for a lot of years. And then sometimes there's a transition where all of a sudden, maybe your kids are starting to say, Mom, Dad, you need to move. You need to downsize. Where can I help you? There's all kinds of questions that come to you. And it's very difficult sometimes to say, wait a minute, I've been your mom for 60 years. You can't tell me what to do at this point. And so I think for a lot of us, it's a bit of a mind shift to who am I now? Am I the child? Are they the parent? So there's a lot of different roles that reverse. But here's the tragic thing that happens. Only 12% of us have given serious thoughts to where you might live after maybe someone tells you you can't stay in your home. What type of care will you need with whatever ailment the good Lord inflicts you with? And what if your needs are really complex? What if you start losing your memory and you lose choice? You lose the ability to make the decisions that you know inside what you want, but you haven't put it down. And you haven't told those people around you how you want to live the last season of your life. And here's the good part. I don't know about you, but I am not asking my brother and sister to help me take care of me. And many moms don't want to ask their sons, maybe I need help bathing. Do you want your son bathing you? I see a few of these, like, no. Those are the choices. But it all starts with something that we're going to talk to you about, is opening the dialogue with the people that are important in your life. And maybe they're not family. Maybe they're close friends. Maybe you're really close to your neighbor. That's your family. So I love the concept that we have in this room, is that it's an extended family with Kathy and her team.
I told you she was smart. Debbie recommended that I not do this, so I'm going to pivot a little bit to...
And you're going to do it.
No. In our presentations like this, we normally ask a question, and I'll tell you what the outcome is, rather than embarrassing anyone with the question here. But when we speak to large groups like this and we talk about, retirement, living choices, I always ask the question, where would you like to live if given a choice? Would you like to remain at home, or would you like to go to Maison? Almost always, with the exception of one or two individuals, they say we want to live at home. So to back that up, there's a survey from 2 years ago from Ipsos Reid. 95% of adults aged 45 and older say they want to live at home as they age. Show of hands. Who wants to live at home as they age? Now, let's do the opposite. No, let's not do the opposite. We won't do the opposite. See, I broke the rule already. So that's true. Almost everyone that we talk to, and for 15 years, Debbie and I jointly together have been working with families, and for 20 years before that, she was doing it through Alberta Health Services as a home care case manager. People want to stay at home. When you finish work today, if you're working, people tend to go straight home. Home is where the heart is. Home is our happy and our safe place in times of trouble. We're going to talk about some things this morning that I think you might be surprised with. I hope you're surprised with. But we'll find out as we go. Deb?
Okay, I want to read you a quote first. I got to put my special lenses on here.
It goes to Peter wherever he is for the quote. That's brilliant.
Okay, so this came out of your organization, Kathy. As J.R. Tolkien said, it does not do to leave a live dragon out of your calculations if you live near one.
Is that you, Peter, that did that?
No, I wish.
Somebody did that from your organization, so round of applause for that.
I'm going to say it one more time because I had to actually read it twice because I went, what does that mean? So it does not do to leave a live dragon out of your calculations if you live near one. So we're going to talk about whether, and some of you might have the dragon right on your doorstep today. He's breathing fire and you're in the middle of it and you're trying to protect yourself from him. Others, he's down the street, but he's coming. And for others, you don't even see a dragon yet, but he lives in the next cul-de-sac over. And so the metaphor of the dragon is your health. The dragon, the demise of your health, or the unhealthiness, or the fall that you're going to experience in the next decade that's going to break your hip, or the Parkinson's that you have, the tremors that are going to become more prevalent in your life, that you're not going to be able to feed yourself, or the memory loss. Now, I'm not talking you forgot where you parked the car or where your keys are for the ladies in their purse. Like, that's not what I'm talking about, but I'm talking about advanced dementias where you don't remember things. That is the metaphor for the dragon that is coming. So if the dragon comes and you have to talk about where would I go? So if I have to leave my home, right now, within our Alberta Health Services model of care, your placement options, your home options are limited. People in the hospital, if you end up there, home care nurses, physicians, have been trained that there's only one pathway. And that's the old methodology. But unfortunately, you're seeing in our healthcare system, that's what they will tell you because they don't know what they don't know. Facility care covers a lot of different places. There are hospitals, so we all know those. Those are acute care places where you go when you're suddenly sick, something happens, you need surgery, you go there. But here's what I want to tell you. One of the hospitals in the city, the Peter Lougheed, and I have a very reputable source who kind of runs that building, they have 45 patients taking up beds at the Peter Lougheed who have no suitable place to put them in the community because of their care needs. That's 45, and those beds are expensive to you and I as taxpayers because it is all of the dynamics around that bed. Staffing, the space, the meals, the care, all of that is falling on the taxpayers. So at the other end of the spectrum is what we call independent living. So those are independent apartments, condos that might have a front concierge. They don't really have any care. Maybe they have a little bistro area where you can go and get a coffee, or you can get, some of them have, one meal a day or one meal a week. So those are pretty independent places that some older adults choose to live in. And then there are assisted living. And this building is like a small apartment, but you have staff, not nurses, staff in the building who take care of possibly your dining needs. So you have to leave your apartment, go down to the dining room, get your meal, and you can come back. Some of them have home care nurses from Alberta Health Services will go in and do sporadic care. So if you have a wound or you need an injection or those things, they'll come in. But they're fairly independent with access. Now, I very clearly said not nurses. The laws have changed, and if you read any of the health acts, they are actually reducing the number of nurses that are necessary to be on shift in order to oversee the care. Now they have to have one licensed practical nurse, not a registered nurse, a licensed practical nurse, who is available to come, which if you're having an emergency, that can be a while. Most of the buildings are staffed by healthcare aides. So those are people that go to Bow Valley College and take about a year. Now, some of the buildings, I don't want to paintbrush everyone the same. You have to remember that a lot of them are very well run, but some of them are not very well run. And so you have to do your research. If that's your choice, if that's where you want to go, you need to be informed. If you have higher care needs than that, I also want you to remember that even though you are paying to be in that building, they are in charge and they will tell you when you have to leave if your care needs are higher than they can manage. And so for you, you then have to leave. You don't have a choice. And the little trick that they use, and I don't know, I guess I used to receive them, so I know they came. They were put in an ambulance at night and sent to the hospital. So the staff at an assisted living would put someone in an ambulance, call, and they would escort them to the hospital, the paramedics would. And then when they would be stabilized, we try and send you back to your home in the assisted living, and the building administration would refuse because they can't take care of you.
The care needs are too much.
So because they can't manage your care needs, they decide that you can't go back to that place. So one of the last places, which has the highest level of care, is called a long-term care facility. Back in the day, we used to call it nursing homes. This is where they have around-the-clock care, and they manage all of your personal care needs. Now, they have a nurse in that building who's on shift, healthcare aides. Now, some of those buildings have 12 to 1,500 residents, one nurse. It's very, very challenging to have a good nurse. I consider myself a good nurse. I can't work there because I would not be able to work there because I couldn't live with myself. with the level of care that I was able to give to these people. Now, they're not bad people in these buildings. The staff that are there are trying to do the best that they can, but the model is broken. The model is wrong. What does that cost you? I don't know. Anybody in this room that goes to those places, so a long-term care building down to an assisted living, it's about $4,500. Kathy said it, $10,000 for maison, beautiful hardwood floors and Red Seal Chef, limited care. You have to pay more if you want care on top of that. Up to about $20,000 a month. I opened this by saying that's how doctors and nurses are trained. That's the pathway that you have to take from your home to assisted living to long-term care. That's the path. They don't even think of an alternative. I'm here to educate you that there's a second option. I'm a very professional person, and I have difficulty with confrontation, let's put it this way. But I was in a meeting with the health minister, and the previous health minister, not this health minister. And they were talking about the number of beds. I don't know if you've heard the conversation. You listen to any political rant, it's all about we don't have enough beds. We need to build more buildings. We need to do all of this to house all these people. And I remember standing up and I said to the health minister, can I just ask you a question? And he said, of course. And I said, so you keep talking about beds, but I want to educate you. I said, I have been in people's homes for the last 27 years, and I know that every senior has a bed. It's in their home. Why are we trying to take them out of their beds? We don't need more beds. We've got beds. We just need to take the resources and the money and put it where the people need it. They need it in their homes so that I can take care of them in their bed. Because that's where most, as Fred said, 95% of people want to be, is in their own bed, surrounded by Fluffy the cat and Sally the dog and their neighbor and their special blankets and their husband or wife or their kids. They want to be surrounded by the memories that they've created over the last decades. So there is another option. It's called home care. And the public system has home care, but the model is different. The public system operates on a task-oriented 15-minute slot of what you get. So they give you 15 minutes to bathe, 15 minutes to eat, 15 minutes to do your exercises, and 15 minutes to, oh, that's right, you don't get the last 15 minutes because the worker needs 15 minutes to get on to the next person. So you get an hour. But you don't actually get an hour, because some of them will actually take 15 minutes on the beginning of their shift and 15 minutes on the end, so you really only get half an hour. So if you like to splash and dash, if that's how your bathing is, then that might work for you. But it is a revolving door of different healthcare providers that will go through, task-oriented. Some of them, they're good people, but some of them don't understand our older people. They may not speak the language. They don't understand our customs. They don't understand how to make a cup of instant coffee. They don't know what an egg and a piece of brown toast is. Some of them can't touch meat, so they can't make you bacon. I'm not talking about their race or religion, but I'm talking about their ability to adapt to the people that they're serving. And so it's backwards. It's totally backwards. Someone's in their home that wants bacon and eggs and toast and a bath. That's what we should give them, not the other way around, what fits for the healthcare system. It's what the person needs to age with dignity and respect in their home. So I'm going to talk to you, and we're going to talk to you about home instead. We're a home care company, how we provide it, but I needed you to know what the Alberta Health Services public home care system is like. So home care is in your homes. It's delivered wherever you live. So it could be apartment, condo, or a house.
Or a farm.
Yeah, rural. Little harder though. Does anybody live rural? It's a little harder to get home care out there because they don't have as many workers that want to go out and drive and do those things, and they don't want to go for an hour at a time. right? So they won't travel. There are some, there's a lot of people that live on ranches and stuff, especially in Alberta, right? So home care support delivers a wide range of health. So short-term care, somebody has a hip, maybe they have a fall and they need their hip replaced, or you just had hip surgery because you've had arthritis in your hip. Home care can take care of you short-term. Long-term, anybody with a condition, diabetics, somebody with Parkinson's, somebody with a chronic disease, with dementia, chronic leukemias, those types of things where it's a longer health trajectory, you could be on home care for a long period of time. And the other part is end-of-life care, so allowing someone to pass away in their home, or rehabilitation, somebody that's trying post-stroke to get back to the best function of their new them. So, publicly funded home care is paid by our provincial government, and that's our tax dollars. But you have to be assessed by them, and they tell you what you qualify for. And there are certain things that they will do and won't do. So they will tell you, yes, we can make you breakfast, but it must consist of a bowl of cereal, a piece of toast. We don't cook. They don't cook. Remember what I said? They have 30 minutes, maybe 45 to get to you, and they got to do your bath, so they're not making you eggs Benny in the morning. There are programs through Alberta Blue Cross called the CDHC, the Client-Directed Home Care. That's why nurses always put acronyms on everything because we can't remember what it is. The CDHC is a subsidized program, and it's an improvement. It is something our governments have done that is good. So what they're doing is you're assessed for how many hours of care you need, and the government will subsidize that care, and they will say you get 20, 25 hours of care, and you get to pick who gives that to you. You pick your vendor, AKA Home Instead, and I'm going to tell you why you should choose us, but you choose that, and then we bill, our company bills Alberta Blue Cross, and hopefully that's all you need. But governments are historically cheap, and so they don't necessarily give you everything you need. So the last part is what we call family-funded home care. So you might get a pool of Blue Cross money, but most people supplement on top of that Blue Cross money in order to get the exact amount of services, because it does take most older adults longer than 30 minutes to do their morning routine, unless you got them running between the bathroom and the bedroom and the kitchen. So family-funded home care is where we come in.
So it's a complex ecosystem of healthcare that we have here in our province. And it's a complex belief system that we have because it's socialized. But it just occurred to me as Debbie was speaking, why do you have Macmillan if you have CPP? Oh, doesn't that cover everything, Kathy? I mean, good Lord. What's that? Right. CPP is like the model of healthcare that AHS has for us. It's not going to work for everyone, and for those that it is working for, it's probably not going to work that well. So today we're presenting some ideas and some concepts that, we could really kind of go to the lowest common denominator and say private care is really the way of the future, but we don't really want to be that linear about it, as you mentioned the word linear earlier. We want to at least give you some options. Let's go back to some stats, because I love stats. CARP, Canadian Association of Retired Persons, in 2023. So last summer, we worked with them to do the survey. 89% wanted to stay at home with supports. CARP, again, 48% said long-term, they would, living in long-term care, so they would have preferred to have been able to remain at home. This is because no one knows about us. We are fighting an uphill battle because the entire system is rigged in favor of socialized healthcare. So really today is about saying there's an option for you. And to be honest with you, our industry has blossomed in the last 20 years. There are hundreds of independent providers. I won't say just like us, because no one is just like us. I can't see anyone else speaking at the UN this morning in New York. I can't see anyone else having 1,200 offices in 12 countries globally. But there are lots of what we would call Johnny-come-latelys, people who want to get into the care industry and say, let's work out of the basement. You knew a nurse once, that makes you qualified. You've got a senior citizen as a parent, therefore you know what it's all about. And that's who we compete with. So we want to talk about how you can plan to age at home. We tend to think about illness and incapacity, and we assume it's going to be taken care of by our health system. Let's be honest. Acute, urgent issues are handled world-class by AHS. Heavens forbid, if I walk across the street, because I did remember where I parked, down that way, because I went to the wrong building this morning. There is a building just like that, 2 blocks that way, by the way. But if I get hit by a car, I will receive world-class health care. The ambulance will get me to the hospital. I will be well looked after. That's not the case for the subacute or the less urgent care. We begin standing in line. So we want to talk about how you can talk about these things. And we have a booklet. It's in each of those portfolios, this lady right here. Ma'am, could you just hold that up for me? Debbie's got it too. Ma'am, could you hold that up for me? It's called the 40-70 plan, or the 40-70 rule. And when the children like Craig, and by the way, I forgot to introduce Craig, I'm so sorry. Craig is our community partnerships manager working in the community with doctors' offices, social workers, and organizations like this one, except this is a house account, so Debbie and I look after this one. But Craig works with us spreading the good news and building referral partnerships. But when the children of the seniors are in their 40s and the adults are in their 70s, there's 6 things that we know through research we need to talk about. I'm going to spend just a minute talking about those. And the booklet is given to you free of charge. Kathy, I will send Kathy or Michaela the PDF, and you can send this out to anyone else if they lose it. So we know there are 6 crucial conversations that need to happen. And the first one is living choices. Where do you want to live? And how do you want to live? Do you want to go on the cruise, like Kathy said, yearly? What does living look like to you? Do you want to go to Thailand and live there 6 months a year? Financial choices. Again, Kathy and her team, you've trusted them, keep trusting them. They know they know your plan, and they will plan with you. But members of our family, have recently stopped buying the new car every 4 or 5 years of our parents. They've realized that they're not driving anymore anyway. So the 3-year-old car only has 20,000 kilometers on it. The financial choices are huge because it also impacts health. There are private doctor's offices you can go to. 2-tier system in Alberta, I know. They're private, and they're good too. They don't get you to the front of the line. They just let you get into the doctor's office. And you can set an appointment, and generally you don't have to wait longer than a minute or 2 after your appointment. Your health choices, though, are huge. And you need to know what your health choices are. And just like you may have shopped around prior to coming to Macmillan and working with Kathy and her team, you have to shop around for your doctor. Not all doctors are equal. Debbie has coined a phrase, a nurse is not a nurse is not a nurse. There are good nurses, and there are nurses that need to go back to school. Relationships and dating. We have Thanksgiving coming up this weekend. Many of our clients, let's be honest, Bill and Mary, fictitious couple's name, they were married for 45 years, but Mary passed 2 years ago. Bill knows Peggy from church. Peggy's husband passed 3 years ago. Peggy and Bill would like to come to Bill's family for Thanksgiving dinner. How do you have that conversation without offending, the memory of mom? In this booklet are conversation starters. Ability to drive. Folks, it seems to be a binary yes-no go, don't go kind of decision for older folks to drive. It doesn't have to be yes or no. It can be maybe in certain situations you don't drive during a rush hour. Well, that's when my doctor's appointment is. I like to go to the doctor on Monday morning at 8 a.m. And I have to take Deerfoot. Come on, Dad. Why don't we move that appointment to noon on Monday so that the rest of Calgary is off of Deerfoot? Well, I guess I could do that. And you can PVR the news, Dad. Okay, all right, because I have to be home by. These are the thinking, and we're not judging them as right or wrong, but these are the thinkings that people have when it comes to driving. Now, Kathy was right. Debbie and I were in a lot of Asia earlier this year, and they don't use Uber there. They have another similar company called Grab. We grabbed everywhere. I just realized that could have come out wrong. But we used the ride service Grab and went everywhere. And it is super convenient. How many people, show of hands here, how many people here in this room have used Uber in the last 6 months? It's awesome. And maybe that's a solution for seniors.
Many of them don't know about Uber, right? So it's having that conversation, what their option is. You don't have to give up driving, just have somebody drive you.
And finally, as we get closer here to the end of life choices, really this has to be with not how one will die, but where you will die. We help palliate, which means in the end portion of one's life, many people who wish to die at home. Not in a sterile building with a hospital building, not in an institution, but at home. It usually happens in the living room, and it happens in a graceful and delicate and proper way. End-of-life choices can also be where one's remains would go, or to Kathy and her team, what your legacy might look like as an end-of-life choice. So this program, the 40-70 rule, is designed to help some of you who are maybe at 70. I can't see anyone in the room who's over 70, by the way. We all look like we're in mid to early 30s. 60 is weird. You get this letter from Canada Revenue Agency or whatever. You want to take your pension. It's like, this used to happen to somebody else. So I said, no. If I don't take it, I'm not acknowledging my age. But we know that talking is difficult. And so what we want you to do is begin that conversation. So Deb's going to talk about what you should do next.
The thing I want you to take away from today is that you have choice. And even though you've been told that this is the way it should be, I just want you to actually step back and think, what do I want? Who do I have to ask to help me with that? And you need to start the conversation now. As an emerged nurse, I saw people in crisis all the time. And that's not when you want to make a decision. That's not when you want to put your family in that situation to make a decision when you're in crisis. If you plan ahead, it's so much easier because everybody can hold hands together and say, this is what we talked about. We never wanted to be here, but we're here now, and this is what we want to do. And I tell you as a nurse who's done it with families, but I also tell you that happened in my own family. I just lost my mother a few months ago. And doesn't matter what you know, I'm a smart woman in that moment. I was a daughter. And I was somebody who was heartbroken watching my family fall apart because our matriarch just died. So you have to have those conversations ahead of time. As hard as it was, we all went together like this. and we grieved together. Now, we didn't all agree on everything. Doesn't mean you have to be clones of each other, but you have to have that conversation, and you have to know what your loved one wants. I didn't agree with my dad. I didn't want what he wanted for my mom. So we had to have that hard conversation. He respected my decision, but I had to respect him as well. And so those discussions, I did not, and I'm so glad we didn't have them in the moment when Mom fell, broke her hip, had hip surgery, ended up with pneumonia, dementia went crazy, then she fell again and broke her ribs, and that was the end. So you need to have these conversations so that when that happens, we all knew what we wanted for her in the end. We wanted a peaceful death for my mom. So have those necessary conversations. This booklet, we've spoken with other planners, not necessarily financial planners, but people that help people plan in their lives. And they've told us that this book is like gold, that we shouldn't be giving it away, that it's a wonderful tool for us that they can use in their organizations, that this should be used. Fred and I said, no. Everybody needs to know this and be able to help us with, we need to be able to help them with the decisions that they've got. Gather your facts about your costs. Talk to Kathy and her team about what does that look like for you? What resources do you have and what money can you spend on care? Realize no one wants to be unwell, but it happens to some of us.
That dragon. The dragon doesn't care.
Yeah.
The dragon's coming for us all.
And at some point, maybe the dragon's going to be nice and he's just going to nip your heels. And for others, he's going to hit you full on with whatever he's bringing towards you. That none of us know if tomorrow's going to be a great day or if tomorrow's going to be our last day. We've already talked about working with Kathy's team. Begin. Don't wait too late to plan. Don't rely on others. Rely on yourself and the people that are important around you to make those decisions.
What do we do? We've talked about the care models out there. We've talked about the public system, the healthcare ecosystem. Home Instead is a private home care company. I met with the current health minister, Adriana LaGrange, and she said, don't call yourself private. It has a bad nuance. Call yourself independent. Thank you, Minister LaGrange. We work with families that look a lot like the people in this room. And our process is very similar, perhaps, to Kathy's program. It all starts with a conversation. And Debbie hit the nail home 100 times today, but I want to do it 101. You need to have these conversations with a company like ours now to begin the thought process. Don't wait till an urgent matter has come up and now you have to go quickly. Start talking about, well, I do want to stay in my home. How would that work? What would that look like? So we actually broke down some numbers. There are some families where we're in just 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, from 9 till 12. And we help that senior or that senior couple get a positive start to the day. It's as simple as having a happy person come in. Usually on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, you're going to see 1 or 2 people as your regular ongoing care professionals. We call them care professionals not because they're nurses. In most cases, they're not nurses. You don't need a nurse to help you make bacon and eggs. You don't need a nurse to help you draw a shower. You need somebody who's passionate about doing it and who's well-trained and prepared, and that's what you get. So for some folks, a Monday, Wednesday, Friday routine for 3 hours works well.
And that keeps you in your home rather than having to move.
It also allows us to work with the family and perhaps Kathy's team to say, George is doing really, really well. I think we need to start adding weekend care because George's family can't come on the weekends because they're skiing or they're traveling or they're going to Hawaii or Mexico. And it allows, we can scale care up and then we can scale it down. So that's 3 times a week, fairly unintrusive. Now we do something really, really unique. Anytime someone new is going to see a client for the first time, a key member of our office staff goes out and they facilitate an introduction. This week, I think we've done, last week we did 35 introductions. So we're not just going to send someone to mom and dad's door or to your door. Someone from the office will go meet and we'll set the table, as our American friends like to say. We'll set it right. Sometimes we need to go 3 hours a day, 7 days a week. Sometimes it's 8 hours a day. Sometimes it's just on weekends because the family can't be there. The key to this is recognizing, and I guess we're going to overuse it and it'll be ruined, recognizing the dragon's coming for all of us. And the dragon is old age, infirmity, lack of good decision making sometimes. because pride and ego get in the way. Oh, hang on.
Yep.
Questions are coming up.
Yeah. Starts with a conversation with us, a phone call. That's what it is, no charge for you to call us and talk with our staff. We have nurses, rec therapists, occupational therapists. All of us are case managers, and I oversee all of that team. We have a conversation, and for a lot of times, it's a son or a daughter calling, or a senior themselves, but they're saying, I don't know what I need. I don't know how often I need it. I just know that this is stressful. Can you help? What we'll do is, if it's appropriate, we'll go out to wherever they live, and let's have a look at the home. Let's see what the care looks like, how often you need, how often you want. Some seniors like to bathe every day, some like to bathe twice a week. Some of them like to have baths in the evening, some like it in the morning. So we ask all kinds of questions to figure out what's important to that person. And that's what we tailor the care around. We don't tell you that we can only do these tick box things. We say, what do you need? And you tell us what you need. Home care won't clean out the kitty litter box. We will, because that's been enough to take somebody out of their home to go to a long-term care place. We'll walk the dog. We prefer to take you with us while we walk the dog, because that's exercise. You want to bathe, you want to shower, you like 2 meals a day, 3 meals. We make sure that it's your lifestyle that we're trying to fit into, not fit you into our box. And so that's a really important concept that you guys need to understand, that that's another choice that you have. After that assessment, Fred is absolutely right. The first time that care professional shows up, we take them to make it easy. There's no stranger showing up at the door. That's a real negative for a lot of seniors, is there's no trust. Who's there? They know what they're doing before they cross that threshold. Our staff know what they're doing before they cross. And then we do quality assurance visits and follow-ups, and our client care coordinators are available always 24/7 to be able to speak to somebody. There is one of our staff on call, live body, 24/7, which is really, really important. You're not calling Vancouver, which our friends at Nurse Next Door do. They don't know nothing about Calgary winters, let alone our weather here. So, okay.
Just one last quick story, just a quick one, because I think it'll bring it into focus. A very wealthy Calgary family, that we won't mention the name, but they live just in De Winton. And the gentleman insisted that his wife be cared for. His wife, unfortunately, had a few health complications. She was a diabetic, and she had early onset dementia that was only getting worse. We started with that family 7 days a week for 3 hours a day. As her dementia became more challenging to the gentleman, we just adjusted care. And finally, in the end, we had 2 care professionals going in from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. We helped this lady have a productive, well-intentioned life, so much so that the daughter called and they said, Fred, we've got a challenge for you that you need to say yes to. So I just said, yes, and she goes, great. We're taking the PJ to see Brooks and Dunn. Anyone know what a PJ is, or I'm the only one that didn't know? The private jet. We're taking
Brooks and Dunn is a country and western big band.
Brooks and Dunn we're playing in Vegas, and Dad wants to take Mom to Vegas, and we need your care pros. So we got to talk OHS, we got to talk WCB, we got to talk U.S. Customs and Immigration, and the daughter said, I know you'll make it work, and we did. And that's what we do. And unfortunately, or fortunately, the happy story ended shortly after that with this wonderful lady passing away. But that's what we do. We look after people at home, wherever they call home, and we make heaven and earth move to make sure we make them happy. So we are on the questions point of view, or questions part. Kathy, what do we do now? Do I just run away, or?
Brian right back at the back there with his mom.
Need to go, Brian.
Thank you. Maybe a couple questions. First one, do you trade on the stock market?
Oh,
Homestead.
that's a good one.
Is it a public company?
It is a. So I don't know, who knows what VenCap is? Venture cap? Somebody here's got to know. Home Instead was bought for $2 billion 3 years ago by Silicon Valley money, and it was absorbed into a tech company. And they're working, it's been really interesting because Debbie will tell you that a robot or an AI can't wipe someone's bum. And she's true, it's true. So we're privately held right now. And I think they're trying to put us on the stock market eventually.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out for that. Actually, what my first question was the facility model that you explained there was for Alberta. How does Alberta compare with other provinces across Canada?
Ontario, BC.
So BC is much different. And Ontario is about 10 years ahead of us in terms of their long-term beds. So you will hear the Ontario government talk about that they have no long-term care beds. Their hospitals are jam full of that. So each province runs their own provincial health cares separately. I am an expert on Alberta's. I would never want to even try and navigate Ontario's. Much more liberal focused, obviously, with the government that is out there. And BC they're imploding as we speak. They just are in a real mess. We in Alberta are actually better than most of the country. But I want to be really careful when I say better. The structure is better. The actual care that people get, as Fred said, in acute care, urgent treatment is really good. But our elderly people that are in these hospitals are literally there and they are not treated the same as those urgent people.
Did you have a follow-up question, sir?
I can tell you why from my research, and it was when I first moved back to Calgary. So Alberta is Canada's youngest population in age. It's the highest incomes, not net worth, incomes, and it has the highest ratio of degrees. So we're a younger province, we're smart, we're out in the mountains, we're getting fresh air. But does anyone remember Harry Dent, the demographer that we all followed years ago? We're the pig and the python. We're the baby boomers. Remember? Our dads, my dad was in the Navy. They took a young man out of Brandon, Manitoba, and put him in the Navy. Kind of made some sense, maybe. He was a wireless operator. My grandpa was station master for CP Rail in Brandon. So my dad read teletype, and so he was put on a ship. He came home from a horrible situation that he never spoke about. And my mom, when they got married, had to quit her job because they were leaving room for the men coming back from war. The baby boom started in the US immediately. Those guys were not as polite as our Canadian guys. Our lag time was 2 years when our baby boom started. So we are the pig and the python. And BC has a lot of retirees, so they have impacted the system earlier. As I know, I have a ton of clients out there. They're starting to come back to Alberta, to where they want to be in the last 10 to 15 years, because they have friends, they have support, and they know the system is better here. But remember, it's coming. This tsunami is coming. We see it in Ontario. We see it in BC. We saw it during COVID in the seniors' homes, so we know this. So this is the time to have, we love conversations about traveling and your grandkids and what's up and your renovations. These are crucial conversations. They're not pleasant. They're not fun. They are critical and they are crucial. And this is why we brought this forth. I'd rather have a travel presentation where I'm going to book my next trip, but this is serious business here. Other questions? Yes, Rahim. My gazelle's on her way.
Thank you. My simple question is, how would you provide your care? Some of us do live in two-story homes, Some of us live in bungalows, some of us are in villas. What is your best recommendation to provide a decent home care?
That's a Debbie, for sure.
I saw that distance. That's a great question. So you're absolutely right. Every home is different, but you just met me. So I hope when I say this, you'll understand. Trust me, there is a way to care for people no matter where they live. We may not be able to care for you on the second story because you can no longer navigate the stairs. Or we put in a stair lift so you can ride on a seat up your stairs, and we have a walker up top and a walker down below. If you can't walk, then we have a wheelchair at the top and a wheelchair at the bottom. If you can't transfer, we use overhead lifts and we use mechanical machines in order to care for you. The same ones they use in acute care and in these buildings, they fit in your houses. You can have them. And our staff are all trained on how to use them and how to use them well. Maybe you decide that's too much work. We don't want to do that. Well, then we move you down to the main floor. And Fred said most people die in their living room. That's a really good segue into it, is because we turn your living room into your bedroom. And we put curtains up and we make it as private as possible, and we get with your family to decorate it, and we get a hospital bed in there, and we get a commode, and we get anything that you need to take care of you. We can do that. That is totally doable.
Then,
Sorry.
second question to that is that do you then provide a care 24/7?
Great question. Yes. So we do not do live-in care. And people will say, well, why don't you? Because there are programs out there where you can, get a nanny for a senior. Well, seniors have a lot more needs than children do. And it's a very different care. So a nanny, from another country coming and living, they don't know how to care for people. They know how to live in your home and drive your car and eat your groceries and help those with simple things. And some of them are great at it, but they're not trained in how to give care. Our people are trained, and our people work shifts. So they can work 12 hours a day. You might have one working 12 hours a day and one 12 hours at night. All of our care professionals are awake during their shifts. They don't sleep on shift, because the last thing you need is to have to go to the bathroom, and that's where falls happen. Is you get up and they try to go to the bathroom, and before you know it, they're on the floor, and your care professional is sleeping somewhere else. No, they need to be awake to see this person moving. They need to be right beside them so that we prevent that fall. So we work shifts, and I believe strongly that that gives you a different quality of care professional, and somebody who is awake and ready to work. They're not just living in your home with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for the question. We do care for a lot of people. We may start off small and build those hours up as the needs happen. If you don't need 24/7 care, I'm not going to recommend that you need 24/7 care. We're going to capture the hours you need based on your needs.
My question would be, what's your criteria for hiring your staff and how are they trained?
Good question.
Do you want to?
Yeah.
Sure.
It's a really, so how we started was we started hiring in 2009. We only hired healthcare aid grads. But one of our friends said, can I work for you guys? And she wasn't a healthcare aide. And so we said, sure, Lorinda, you can come work for us. What we found was the healthcare aides came with an attitude or an ego, and Lorinda's clients loved her. So I said this to Deb as we started our business. Where's the stockbroker man? I said, well, I said, why is that happening? Why is Lorinda providing better care? She goes, you've been doing the hiring, right? And I went, yeah. She goes, you're an idiot. Don't hire healthcare aides. They're from the public system mentality. So we now hire, by the way, our stat is less than 1% of the people who apply. We hire men and women who want to serve seniors, number one. We don't care if they are white, black. We'll hire people from Saskatchewan. We don't care, right? We're looking for heart. If they have heart, we can train them on how to give a bath. Now, how do we do the training is a second question. The training is complex. There are 5 online modules that they take prior to ever coming into the office for training. So after they're hired, we do a police background check, criminal background check. That weeds out a lot of people. So everyone, including Deb and I, in our company, and there's 250 of us, will have clear police background checks. We check them annually. Second thing is everyone has to have a car, and everyone has to have a relatively clear driving record. When I say that, it's not perfect. I don't have a spotless driving record because that cop got me going to Banff. Speeding, yes, I was speeding. Debbie's dad, by the way, was the head of customs for Canada, so she's very legalistic. Our training then is 2 days of full paid training in the office where we cover everything from policies to a 7-second rule. When you meet someone for the first time, that first 7 seconds, they'll either like you or they won't like you. And we teach them how, first of all, to understand that. The second day is all about personal care. We have a hospital bed, all the things that we were talking to the gentleman over there in the corner, we have that in our lab, in our office. And we're at 4000 Glenmore Court. Our information is in the booklet. We invite you to drop by Monday to Friday, unannounced. Don't make an appointment, just come in. And I dare you to do that with any other company. And they'll have to clean off the living room table to show you their office. So after that training, we then do a full day of dementia care training. At this very moment right now, 10 caregivers are being trained on dementia care. The franchise standard is 50% of the staff have to be trained. Our goal is 95. Currently, we're at 85%. After that training, we then do case-specific training in case there's anything unusual or specific. Let me give you an example. This one client needed to watch PBR rodeo. Professional, I don't know what the PBR stands for, but something rodeo. So we had to know how to find it on the internet, and they would stream it. So that's a stupid thing to say, but we do that. We then also do medical training. Debbie and her team of nurses will do medical training. That private jet story I told you, this lady had diabetes. We had to check her insulin, and then we had to give her an injection using one of those pens. So it becomes case specific. Then after that, we do weekly, twice week or weekly, and then monthly follow-ups with the family as well as the client if they're cognitively intact, as well as the care professional. So it's not just a once and done, it's a keep going. Sorry, you probably wanted less, but all of the training is paid for. We don't ask anyone to, some people play jokes and say, hey, if you pass the training, we might pay you. No. It's all up and up. All of the employees are T4'd, and we do that right. And I love it when CRA calls because our daughter-in-law is a CPA and she's our controller, and she handles all of that. So thank you for your interest in the quality. That's actually what you're asking, I think.
So is Craig your son?
No, Craig
Nope.
looks a lot
Okay.
like our son.
He does look like Stephen, though.
Other questions? So I've asked a million questions. Brian, I've asked a million questions. And one question I ask, because I listen to all your stories when you come in. We have that little time that I go, how are your trips? How's your life? Because, I want to know how you are. It's important. It's important to us. And if we can help in any aspect, our hearts are in it. And I've had 3 horror stories, not to make this negative, and I hate it, but it's a fact, of people saying they popped in to visit their elderly parents, and at 1 p.m, Dad was in bed with the curtains drawn in the dark. And this is heartbreaking. So I said to my sources of information, what about you? Will you, if there's someone in long-term care or in a support situation, will you coordinate with that facility and support them and ensure something like that doesn't happen?
Well, first of all, I like a nap with the windows closed.
Right.
I don't think that's the case here.
So he's a napper. I'm not a napper. I don't want anybody putting me to bed at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, whether I'm 70, 80, or 60. That is what is happening. It's a conformist environment where you lose, again, I keep going back, you lose choice. The staff puts you to sleep, nap, because that's their break time. And they need to have their lunch because they've just been feeding everybody lunch in the dining room. And then it's time for them to have their lunch. So they put all the seniors down. And if you put them in their beds with their rails up, 9 times out of 10, they can't go anywhere. Some of them still escape and get out over the sides. And you'll find them wandering. That's the elopement risk. And it's usually the feisty 95-year-old that's the one that's trying to crawl out of bed, right? Because he doesn't want to be held down. So to your point, yes, that's exactly what we say to families. What can we do in the afternoon? They wonder why people in long-term care don't sleep well at night. Because they got them in bed all the time. And if you have nothing to do except stare at the ceiling, you're going to nod off and you're going to nap in between. So the more we keep you engaged and the more we socially talk to you, we'll keep your language skills going. It'll keep your brain active. It'll keep your body healthy because we're going for a walk and we're looking at the birds and we're feeding the squirrels. And I don't know, some of the things we do, we break them out of long-term care is what we do. They told me I couldn't take my mom out for 6 months. I said, watch this. And I took her and she loved to watch airplanes. So she wasn't a great walker. So I drove to the airport and we sat and watched the airplanes take off. Man, she slept good that night. She was busy during the day. So our care professionals do those types of activities. And it's not because if you don't like to play bingo, I guarantee if you move into a building, you're going to learn to play bingo because that's where they take you, is to play bingo. I hate bingo. I do not want to daub things at all.
The institutional care just lacks the ability to actually customize care. Yeah. And when we say institutional care, any building other than your home is an institution. That's probably a blunt way to put it. So I'll pass this back to you and that gentleman in the back and this lady in the back.
So 2 questions again. First one, my understanding is that you're based in Calgary.
Yep.
How big of a radius do you go outside of Calgary? The reason I'm asking is I live in High River.
That's right on the shoulder. That's right on the shoulder. And I'll share with you why I kind of wince when I say that. If we take a client on, someone will be there for care. When we have 40 below and snowy roads, if we had to, and we've got a big staff now, it used to be us doing that. So High River is right on the shoulder. To be honest with you, in public, what we do is we'd have an open and frank conversation saying, we can start you, we may have some spottiness because of where you're at. We'll endeavor to hire out there, we'll endeavor to support it, but it may be one where we have to move off of the traditional model and with consent and agreement and full transparency, talk about that. That's probably the simplest way to put that.
Second question is,
So we do High River, the city, and Fred's, a lot of times it's south of High River that we struggle with, but definitely Okotoks, Cochrane, Airdrie, and Chestermere, all around the city that way.
so your franchise is located in Calgary. Is there other franchises around the province?
Yeah, that's a great question. We helped start them all. 2 of them in Edmonton. And when I say started, the franchisor would just turn the people who are shopping over to us, and we would tour them and kind of bring them under our wing. So 2 in Edmonton, 1 in the Camrose area, and then 1 in Red Deer. So we're not in Lethbridge, Medicine Hat yet. We are continually being recruited and asked by Home Instead to do that. It's about resources. We'd rather commit to one area and do it exceedingly well than try to do something and have to give excuses. So that's available. I'm happy to talk to you about how that works. I received nothing for doing that, by the way.
So as you all know, I did my initial training in Ottawa. Served time in Ottawa is how I put it, and then came home. So I inquired from Debbie and Fred. I have lots of older clients in Ottawa area, all through that area. And they will vet the franchise holder in that area, assure me that they're wonderful, and put us in touch with them. So they're right across Canada, and Fred and Debbie would know of them. Liz, I think you have a question?
Just curious whether the caregivers have the ability to assess a situation.
and problem solves to try to prevent problems from occurring in the first place, and whether there's a system where they can go and speak to you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So they're not nurses. So we don't ask them to assess because that needs critical thinking and you need to be trained in order to do that. But they do assess that if their care, when we meet the client for the first time and over the time that they work with them, we call it a change in condition. So if there's anything that's out of the normal for that person, they are all instructed to call the office. And I said that it's 24/7, so our phones are always answered. And so not only do we have staff that manage all of the care professionals' schedules and where they're going, as you can imagine, 250 employees going throughout all that territory, that's like an air traffic controller and making sure everybody's where they're supposed to be. We also have a client care team that if the scheduling team, the first person who answers the phone does not know the answer or is not able to help, there is a second backup and a third backup to that. So care professionals are trained on what to look for. These are the things that we want to know about right away. They're trained on emergency procedures too. It happens, they'll show up to a shift and they find their senior on the floor. And their senior's been there for who knows. Last time they saw them was at 5 o'clock that other evening, and now they're back at 5 o'clock and they're on the floor. So we have to assume the worst. So if the care professional is not comfortable calling 911 or they're too busy, like taking care of the person, they all carry their cell phones with them and they speed dial to the office, and then we mobilize emergency services, have them assessed, and then it's up to the family and the individual based on their ability to process that, whether or not they go to the hospital. So they are trained on all of those things, and that's an ongoing training with them. And it's really important they recognize. We have a thing called 8 care needs. They're categories of care, and we teach them what to look for in each of them. Part of it is safety in the environment. I don't know, I used to show up at my folks' place, and all of a sudden there'd be a new throw rug, and I'd put it away, and then miraculously, it must have flown out of the closet where I hid it, and it was back. My mom would find it, right, and put it back. So they're trained to look for safety things. They're trained to look for, are they more confused than they were the last time I saw them? They're not eating. They're not getting out of bed. We're in the bathroom, and something doesn't smell right. We teach them all of those things to look for. They're not assessing what's wrong, but they know what to look for. This is a real cool feature, and I'm not a tech person, I'm a nurse. We have what's called a family room. So it is an online portal where every family, for free, has access to this family room. And in there, they can log on and see the pictures of the care professionals that are working with their mom and dad. And for some families, that's really important because they're remote. They don't get to be in mom's house. They can see the schedule and who's assigned, which care professional is working when, what hours, the entire months that they're scheduled for, they can see. And they can also see if there's a gap. Maybe a care professional's taking a day off and there's an open shift. They can call us and say, who are you going to put in there? I'm worried about my mom. So that conversation can happen. So we're very transparent with our families. They can also communicate with us. If they're different time zone, different part of the world, they can actually type into this family room and it comes directly to our management team's laptops. And they can see exactly, and we can answer them with tech or we can phone them. Sometimes it's like, can someone go to my mom's house at 9 o'clock? Instead of picking her up at the house, can you pick her up at my house? Because I had her overnight. We get that message. We let the care professional know she's not going here, she's going there. So those kind of coordination things, and it's really a peace of mind. They can also get their invoices. So it's self-serving to the families as well. They can do their own planning financially by, they can see our invoices on there as well.
Did that answer your question, ma'am? Yeah. The other thing they can do is they can see that. The other thing they can do is they can actually see the shift notes in real time. The shift notes. So whatever the care professional documents and documentation. There's an old nursing saying, if it's not documented,
It's not done.
it's not done. And so no one gets paid unless it's documented. And so we have to document what took place on that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12-hour shift. And families love that because they can go, wait, When did we stop doing this? Because they can see it. So it's about being transparent. And there's a question that hasn't been asked, but I want to offer it. Problems happen. Families get disappointed with us. Senior citizens, those lovely people that we serve, are sometimes unhappy with us. It happens. We acknowledge it and we seek ways to fix it. Sometimes we've dropped the ball, we've screwed up, we've done something wrong. And the other half of the time, it's just unreasonable expectations that they would have duck à l'orange 7 days a week with Parisian scalloped potatoes.
I was going to ask about ketogenic.
No, he doesn't work for us anymore. Here's Kathy.
Rahim.
Backing up to that question that was asked by somebody over there, once your healthcare professional decides that the person is on the floor and needs to be taken to the hospital, does your recommendation from your organization refer the person to the hospital? Do you avoid a certain triage steps, or do you have to go through the same normal routine that an emergency?
So that's a really good question. When somebody falls, especially an older person, it might look innocuous. It might look like it was nothing. It was just a kind of crumple down to the floor. Our care professionals are trained that they are to assist the person down to the floor. They're not to stop them from falling, because one, that will injure the employee as well. Protect their head. That's the most important part of your body at that point, because we don't want somebody to have a head injury. They guide them down to the floor if they're obviously close enough to be able to stop the fall. They're to leave them on the floor. And then if the individual is able to get up on their own, meaning we pull a chair over, they can kind of turn over onto their knees. It's very difficult when you're 90 to be able to get off the floor, unless you got something, yeah. So we try to assist them, but we will not lift them off the floor. And the reason is because I've seen many elderly people who have very frail bones where something is broken. And we don't think it happened, but it happened when they fell. So if they can't get up on their own, then we do call 911. And the paramedics will come and assess what's going on. If they choose at that point to lift that person off the floor, and our second phone call is 911, and the next one is to their primary, meaning their daughter or their son, because we know that it can take hours. If we don't do that phone call before they go to the hospital, they can be there for hours before somebody in the hospital is thought to call their loved one. So we call their loved one right away. Sometimes the family will make the decision and say, please do not take her to the hospital. It's okay, we don't want her going. So we respect that wish. Obviously, we're going to try and make her comfortable, and I'm going to try and talk to that daughter to say, why don't you at least let it be assessed and find out what's going on? Let's make sure she's okay, and then we can take her back home. I don't circumvent the triage process at the emergency hospitals. I haven't figured out how to do that. I worked there for years, but sometimes if there's a colleague I know, might be able to make a call, but the older I get, the less young whippersnappers I know that work in the emerge department. So we don't bypass that system. Unfortunately, I don't have a fast track to get them through and assessed. Now we can do mobile x-rays. That's another thing that families don't know about, is like, okay, they're on the floor, let's put them back in the bed, paramedics, and let's call and see if she actually did break something. And if you have the resources and the money, let's do that, as opposed to spending 10 hours in emerge for them to do a hip x-ray and go, yeah, everything's fine, ship her back. So there are options. If she has a wound, then we do talk to the home care people. They're experts at wounds. And so that's a really good specialty. And so we mobilize, we work collaboratively with the existing home care people.
Peter.
Maybe I'll just come up and use the mic.
Sure.
Might be a bit of a trick question, so I did some of my own research. But with homestead service, can you claim it as a medical expense?
And the answer to that, my friend, is maybe. We, for 15 years, this has been our answer. check with your insurance provider, check with CRA. I would hate to give you, I don't mind telling you something that we know, but I hate guessing because then that can impact people. So check with your CPA on staff and give our office a call. And then the second question is a follow-up to that you may not have yet is this covered under some sort of insurance? And the answer then again is maybe, depends on what the policy is written to do. So we just, each year, and we have accountants as well, they're not as wonderful as you guys, but each year our accountants are telling us things change. So we're careful to give you guidance on that.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say, not a CPA, so this isn't tax advice, but guidance. If you are eligible for disability tax credit or have written certification from a medical practitioner, I'm pretty sure your guys' services are medical expenses, but again, please go to your accountant on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, on the heels of Zach, we have starting on Wednesday, Pam DeLima, who's a chartered accountant. She's a young gal, so the guys are feeling the crunch. We used to be 50% gals, 50% guys. Now we're down to 2 guys, and they're getting nervous. So it's the best person for the job, of course. So on Wednesday, we're eagerly awaiting her. Pam DeLima, early 30s, chartered accountant, very experienced. Tired of auditing, tired of doing a gazillion tax returns in April, wants to forward think and coordinate chartered accounting with plan writing. So teaching Pam software, I think, is going to be easier. And the end of the month, we have a gentleman joining us, Chris Thorough. Thank you. And he is, from my past training, Investors Group. He is extremely well trained in plan writing and insurance. So we finally have in my team an insurance specialist, a very experienced plan writer. He's also in his early 30s. I'm just mentioning these ages as I get older, because I opened an envelope in April, and it was from Canada Pension. And they said, gee, you're now 70 and you haven't applied for Canada Pension. Therefore, we're sending you a check. And I have a picture of me with the check looking extremely dismayed because that's what brought it home. No tax taken off at source, nothing. But where did that time go? And I plan on being, and I think you will also, being focused, having purpose in life, and social connection, curious minds. I've got your retirement projections through till, I think we kind of average the age of 95. And you know, I always like to be right. So I'm expecting 95 with this group. Yes. Any more questions? We have some, I forgot to tell you, we have some retired Alberta healthcare here. Ooh, forgot to tell you.
How did we do?
They'll probably, can you hang around a little bit after for personal questions? Great.
We'll cuddle up in the corner there out of the way
Okay.
and let you visit, and Craig, Debbie, and I will be in the corner. And it's interesting, Craig does look similar to our son, except our son's about 6 inches taller and about 80 pounds heavier.
So kind of similar.
Yeah.
We live a very fortunate, privileged life, don't we? We worked hard for it, though. It didn't come to us. Therefore, we have choices, options that allow you to stay in comfort, surrounded by what you love, who you love, receiving the care and support you need with the manner and delivery that you choose. Whatever you decide, know that the right choice is the one that empowers you to live life fully with dignity, purpose, and may I say comfort, and a big dash of fun. When Fred and Debbie asked at the pet club who wants to go to a senior's home, I raised my hand. They looked surprised, and I said yes. They looked a bit speechless, and I said, but I want the Ritz-Carlton of senior's home. I want to get up in the morning, make a decision between yoga, tai chi. I want to learn how to play cards. I'm hoping maybe I can engage you guys. I want to go to movies. I want to go on private bus tours. I want to shop. I want to socialize. So I have choices too. So please know your future is your future. And I invite you to be thoughtful. Thank you. Such a pleasure.